Okay, I guess this is part 3.5. So we dropped off, before that my phone interrupted me with Wayward Swordtooth. Explain that. Look, an island, nobody cares. Swamp, nobody cares. Elendra Waste, almost nobody cares. I like looking at it. It'd be nice to have a foil one, but I'm not going to pay for a foil Apocalypse Elendra Waste. Nope, 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 nope. Too many other things I could buy. Zigoth. So, got the foil extra version, and it's really pretty. Swamp Forest Island comes into play tapped. I can cycle it. I forget about the cycling because I don't care. I'm not going to cycle this away. Shoulder Whispering one. Okay, 5 black for a 6/6 Swamp Walking Predator. Beginning of your upkeep, return target creature card from graveyard to the battlefield. The beginning of each opponent's upkeep, that player sacrifices a creature. Right, so she's the other card that tops out of 7. This is the top of the mana curve for this deck. I've got her, and I've got Butcher Malakir. Everything else costs less. Right, so let's get on with it. So the first combo is Jarad and Lord of Extinction. Yeah, and a lot of people are going to know how this works. So anyway, Jarad, black, green for a 2/2 legendary elf. He gets +1/+1 for each creature card in your graveyard. 1 black, green, sacrifice another creature, this one. Each opponent loses life equal to the sacrificed creature's power. And then he's got some other bullshit at the bottom that I don't care about because I'm playing Muldrotha. I don't need to sacrifice lands to put them back in my hand. So anyway, Lord of Extinction, 3 black, green for elemental that's as power and tough equal to the number of cards, and not creatures, not any specific card type, just cards. So if you have a crap ton of cards in your graveyard and your opponents have the typical 5 to a dozen, unless you've got 2 other opponents, maybe you'll have 20 cards, 2 other opponents, 74, it's 34 cards. You sacrifice this bastard with Jarad's ability, they each lose 34 life. By the time you can pull this off, they should have taken some hits and that should kill them. So this is the kind of the mindless, everybody expects it combo. So since everybody expects it, I have it. Why not? Here's the more interesting combo, and then I'll show you the cards that go along with it. So the way this works, you've got lands. Tap, and this really works best when you have Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth in play. Tap all your lands for black. So let's say you've got 10 lands, because Urborg, you tap them all for black. And when I show you the protection cards, the counters, you might, or yeah, anyway. So 10 black. Sacrifice those lands to gain 2 life. Pump the 10 mana through Pestilence, and it does 10 damage to everything. Now, each Pestilence activation is a separate activation. It's not 10 damage to everything, it's 10 instances of 1 point of damage to everything. Sometimes that can be important. Sometimes the distinction can be relevant. So, World Shaper, when he dies, put all lands from your graveyard on the battlefield tapped. So you get your lands back. So you can do it again. So that's the basic combo. The one I really kind of have fun with. Tap all the lands for black, sacrifice all the lands so you gain 2 life for each land. So in the 10 land example, you've got 10 black mana, you gain 20 life, you do 10 points of damage to everything including yourself, so you're still up by 10 life. So you should be getting over on your opponents at that point. Now, and this is still cards for the deck, in the deck, that I haven't shown. So if you wonder why I didn't show them when I went through everything, I kept these aside at the end in order to specifically call them out. Yarok the Desecrated, 2 black, blue, green, 3/5 Death Touch Lifelinker. If a permanent entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, it triggers an additional time. So if a land enters the battlefield under your control, you may add 1 mana, so this would be 2 mana. And Nixilis the Fallen, 5 for 3/3 demon. When a land enters the battlefield under your control, you may have target player lose 3 life, and if you do, put 3 counters on him. So let's say with that pestilence example, let me try to get all 3 of these so you can see the powers and toughness too. Right. So World Shaper dies, the lands come back. Lotus Cobra would have died at that point. So if you have him in the graveyard, what you want to do is have tapped for at least 1 green. So you tap for 9 black and 1 green. You make a 8-point pestilence. You make an 8-point pestilence, 8 1-point pestilence, whatever. You spend 1 of the black and that green, put Lotus Cobra back into play from the graveyard after the pestilence triggers have resolved. Actually, that's not going to work, because World Shaper's ability has to resolve, so that, Sometimes I have a really good idea, but I don't think it through in full, because I'm not playing the deck. I don't see the interactions. I don't really get to, I don't talk to many people about my decks and the way they're built. So I miss it on things like this. My idea was I would be able to cast Lotus Cobra. When World Shaper dies, put all lands to the graveyard on the battlefield tapped. If I have Yarok in play somehow, if I haven't pestilenced for enough to kill her, then I would get double landfall triggers. I would add double the mana. So the other way around this is, instead of letting pestilence hit, so let's try this again. Tap all the land for mana. Sacrifice all. Let's put him back here. Tap all the land for mana. Be careful of the colors because of what you're going to need to do. Sacrifice the lands, gain 2 life for each land. Sacrifice him to something like Birthing Pod or Helm of Possession. Sacrifice him to something that isn't Pestilence. Get him killed so he dies. Have a Lotus Cobra in play. Have a Yarok in play. If you don't have a Yarok in play, oh well, at least you've got Lotus Cobra in play. So when the World Shaper trigger happens and all the lands come back, you get extra mana because they'll come into play tapped. You can't use them again that turn. So at that point you should have near double your mana after spending whatever you needed to activate Helm of Possession or Birthing Pod and so on. And then run it all through Pestilence. And then if you need to, the lands that came back into play tapped with World Shaper's trigger, you can sacrifice those to the Zern Orb as well to get your life total above your opponents so they die and you don't. I hope that explains that well enough. And then if he doesn't die, or if he's in play, when you get the World Shaper trigger, 10 lands come into play, somebody's going to lose 30 life, and he's going to get 30 plus and plus encounters. He'll be a 33-33. He'll be a major threat. Just some funky thing I like with the deck. Alright, so let's get to protection. In this deck I have these 5 cards. I have a Tail's End that I haven't put in yet, but these are solely to protect my graveyard. I do not start filling up my graveyard. I do not start trying to go off, per se. I do not start trying to dredge much unless I have him in play or one of these in my hand and I keep the mana up, because somebody is going to Bojuka Bog me. Somebody is going to try to take out my graveyard. I have to stop them. Siren Stormtamer, blue for 1/1 flying Siren Pirate Wizard. Spend a blue, sacrifice her. Target counter spell or ability that targets you or creature you control. So the Bojuka Bog ability that targets you to remove your graveyard. The Nihil Spell Bomb ability that targets you to target your graveyard. You can counter it. Disallow, same thing. Blue, blue, and a colorless. Counter target activated ability, triggered, or spell. So in a pinch you can use it to counter a spell, but again, that's not in there. That's there to protect my graveyard. As Muldrotha slips down. Trickbind, same thing, split second, but the nice thing about Trickbind is because of split second, it cannot be countered. So you will just simply counter that activated triggered ability. Of course, the other part of it is it cannot counter a spell. It just counters ability or activated triggered ability. Void Slime. It's just disallow. It's just disallow with green replacing the colorless. Stifle. It's just split second, or it's just Trickbind without split second and 1 mana less. It's the original card that did this. When it first came into play in Onslaught, it was like, holy crap! What does that mean? It took a little while for all but the hardcore players to really wrap their head around countering an activated or triggered ability. I remember that. It was pretty funny. Let me see. Is Void Slime just disallow with the green instead of colors? Counter target spell activated. Yeah. Same damn card. Alright, so that's Muldrotha. Another way I can protect my graveyard is to have a what is it called? Which is, there's an artifact. Artifact, I believe, costs 4. You cannot be the target of spells or abilities. Off the top of my head, I cannot remember what it is. I have one. I didn't put it in here because it does cost 4, and people can see it, so they start thinking about it. Siren Stormtamer they can see too, but it's funny, they usually don't think about it because it's just a small creature. So anyway, that's the deck. That is the last EDH deck that I have to present to everybody. If all of you out there in the audience want me to keep doing this, keep presenting decks, not necessarily just you like the style of the videos I create, I'll start doing my modern and vintage decks. So anyway, cheers for it, lads.